Yeah. Well, now it feels like home. Thank you all very much. Let me first thank the chairman and everyone here. Yep. Look. What a shock. You're for Trump. I'm going to fall over dead. Now look, every one of those boos, every one of those catcalls, every one of those yells will not keep it, yes, sure, will not solve one problem we face in this country, will not solve, and will not make this country better. Your anger against the truth is reprehensible. When you think about the problems that our country and this world is facing, when you think about that, this type of pettiness is beneath the process of electing a president. Yeah. And as people watch today, if your arguments are so strong, if your arguments are so great, and mine are so bad, then just keep quiet. Let me make my awful arguments, and then you can just reject them out of hand. But the problem is you fear the truth. The problem is you want to shout down any voice that says anything different than what you want to hear. And you can continue to do it, and believe me, it doesn't bother me one bit. I'll tell you what does. I'll tell you what does bother me. As we stand today and watch the atrocities that are going on in Israel, that's what we should spend our time talking about. And that's the place where I suggest some of our anger should be directed. When we should make sure that every candidate running for president makes it very clear to every American and every citizen of the world, the United States will stand undivided with the state of Israel, and we will defeat terrorists all around the world. And I am the only candidate in this race, the only one who's had the opportunity to prosecute those terrorists, to do the job that needed to be done after September 11th, to take terrorists who are going to attack American citizens on our soil and put them in jail. One of them was going to attack airliners coming out of Newark Airport and try to shoot them out of the sky. And we caught them before they could, and he spent the rest of his life and died in prison, as he should have. Another group of 6 of them were going to spend their time attacking our military base in New Jersey at Fort Dix and killing every American man and fighting woman they could find. We caught them, and they are spending the rest of their life in jail the way they should. We need a president who knows how to do that. When you look at what's happening in Europe, the last time the United States turned its back on a shooting war in Europe, we wound up there a few years later, and we had to sacrifice the lives of 500,000 American soldiers to defeat Hitler and fascism in Europe. We need to stand today with Ukraine to defeat the Russians, so that we don't have to ever send American men and fighting women back to Europe to defend freedom and democracy. That's what this country has always stood for, and that's what we need to stand for today. We need to stand with Ukraine and defeat the Russians. And when we look to the south, to our southern border, and we know that because of how porous it is, the terrorists at this very moment could be crossing that border with the intention to do harm to the American people. It has been too long and too many empty promises from too many politicians to defend the southern border and to strengthen it. We need to once and for all secure our border and do it the right way, not with empty promises that don't wind up being fulfilled. Our country was always its greatest, not when we filled the moat and pulled up the drawbridge and said we didn't care about the rest of the world. Our country was always the greatest, not when we did small things that divided each other, but that we did big things that we could all do together. And whether you go back to the forming of this country, when it would have been easy to stay with the King in Great Britain, but a collective group of men and women decided, no, America could only be free, truly free, if we had our own country. They decided to go big, and that's why we're here, and you have the freedom to boo me today. Make sure you send a thank you note to George Washington for that. Second, in 1861, when Abraham Lincoln could have let this part of the country go and just kept it small in the north, he decided to go big. And he fought the Civil War to keep this country free and united. And we made great sacrifices to do it. But because we had a leader who was willing to do big things, after 4 years of that sacrifice, we were a bigger, stronger, freer, richer country than we were before. In 1941, when Franklin Roosevelt could have continued to have America respond to the voices of isolationism and keep America away from what was happening in Europe, he didn't. He decided that a threat like Hitler anywhere was a threat to us as well. He united the country, and we led the fight against fascism 75 years ago. We went big, and we came out as the world's greatest power, freer, stronger, braver, richer than we were before, because we did big things, and we did them together, and we need to do that again. In 1961, when John Kennedy said we were going to go to the moon in this decade and return men back safely, people said it couldn't be done, but America gathered together with our greatest scientists, with our greatest innovation, and we went big. And even though he had been gone for 6 years, his dream was realized, and his dream for our country was realized, and we continue to lead innovation in this country, not by going small, not by looking inward, but by looking outward. We did it then, and we can do it now with leadership that wants to do big things for our country, not small. And Ronald Reagan in 1981 was one of the voices unwilling to accept the existence of the Soviet Union. He called them an evil empire, which they were. He called them violent and destructive for our world, which they were. And he called us together to fight communism around the world and to not cower from it, to not be isolationists, to not just look inward, but look outward. And in 10 years, the Soviet Union disappeared, and what did America emerge? As the only true power in the world, bigger, stronger, safer, freer, and richer. When we go big, we do well. When we go small, we lose. And so today, we confront these problems around the world.